Okay, good evening, can you hear me? Hey! Abu Dhabi! Hey! Very good, you are all there. Well, as Ed rightly says, a lot of what's happened to me is probably going to happen in one way or another to Mike over the period of his recovery. And I want to give something to Mike, a few pointers as he goes along. We're recording this, hopefully. We have 2 cameras, 2 whatever. And we're going to put it on Facebook, put it on YouTube, whatever, and send it to Mike. So we hope that he can actually see what we're all doing. Great turnout, fantastic that you're all here, and I'm sure if Mike could be here himself, well, wouldn't need a fundraising, would we? But great. Thank you everybody for coming. This is fantastic. Great. Now, of course, unfortunately, I was actually there when it happened. So, in fact, Mike and I are probably living proof that lightning does strike twice in the same bloody place. So you never know when it's going to happen, and unfortunately, it has happened twice here in the club. But we're going to get through that, and I just want to say a few things to help him. One of the things that's very important is something I call morphic resonance, or is called morphic resonance. And this is the kind of thing you get with brain waves. People say, yeah, your brain waves go around in your head. But also there's a theory that the brain waves go out around the world. So all around the world there's thousands and thousands, millions, billions, trillions of brain waves going out. It's like when you think, I'm going to ring my wife, and the phone rings and you pick it up and it's your wife. Now, what I want you just to remember that as we go through this, because I want our brain waves to be out there helping Mike. And we don't want any negative waves. I don't know if anybody remembers the, what was it called? The movie The Dirty Dozen, with a very, very, very young Donald Sutherland, who was the tank commander, and he was very high on pot and stuff as he was driving his tank. But he was always going about, don't want any negative waves, man, no negative waves. So we don't want any negative waves from Mike tonight or any other night. What I found as I was going through my recovery is that, in fact, doctors are a bit like car mechanics. They don't know very much. Seriously. The body is an amazing thing, and Mike will find out how amazing it is as he goes through his recovery. There's millions of things that none of us know, doctors don't know. We don't know how they work. We don't know how the brain actually connects to the muscles, to the nervous system, and make all these things work. We really don't know. So car mechanics are a bit like that. If you've got a flat tire, they know you've got a flat tire. If the engine blows up, they know the engine's blown up. But if something goes wrong with the computer system, they have no idea how to fix it. Doctors are a bit like that. You break your arm, simple, it's a mechanical thing. You break your leg, simple mechanical thing. But the nervous system, they really, really don't know. They don't like to admit that, but they really don't know. So it's, well, we'll wait and see, we'll do this, we'll do that. They wouldn't say anything about my situation for about 6 weeks. They wouldn't give my wife, who's here tonight over here, they wouldn't give her or me a clue as to how I was going to recover, or if I was going to recover, or if I was going to do anything in the future. Because at the time, when I had my thing, very, very similar, it was a spinal cord accident. Mine was up here on my neck, the scrum collapsed, everybody fell apart, I fell on the ground, and my brain worked, my mouth worked, which was pretty good, but nothing below the waist worked. My hands and my arms were burning like crazy. My fists were clenched up like this. So they took me into hospital, okay, and I just laid there and couldn't really do anything. And then the first sign of recovery was that my big toe just moved, a fraction of an inch. We actually have it on video, and I moved my big toes, something like that. And then all the doctors came in and looked at it, and everybody wanted to see me do this, move the big toe, okay, move the big toe. And I had to do this, and then the doctor took my wife to one side. He said, well, now we think he'll recover. Okay, we don't know how well or how long it'll take, but he will recover. And we just had some news, actually I think through Eileen, that Mike has said over the last couple of days, he started to feel things. How much, I don't know, but if he can feel something in his lower half, it's a very good sign. And so that was my big toe. But you know, as I said, I couldn't move anything. Couldn't move anything. And you start when you can't move things, and you can't do this, and you can't go over there. You start to appreciate all the people around you. And if you like, even your wife, really? You start to appreciate your wife. Yeah. But besides that, the other people, the simple people, you know, the people that you don't take notice of very much, like the cleaner who comes in and cleans your room. And you know, normally you don't notice, even in the office, the cleaner just cleans the office and you don't take much notice of them. But when they come in and clean your room and you can't do anything just because you're lying there, you start to notice them. I was in Al Noor. My cleaner was a tall, skinny, young Bangladeshi boy. And he used to come in, never looked up, just looked down, just, you know, mopping the floor like this. Every day came in, mopped the floor, walk in, walk out, just mop the floor like this. And I found out his name was Mohammed. And then one day, he came in with a face mask on, like a doctor's mask. And I said, oh, Mohammed, Dr. Mohammed. I said, I'm going to call you Dr. Mohammed from now on. And he said, really? I said, yes, you're Dr. Mohammed. So every day, when he came in after that, I called him Dr. Mohammed. And he brightened up, literally, you know, from day to day. And then one day, the first day they decided to get me out of bed, I had to be lifted out in a crane, literally. So they put this kind of a sling under my body, and then they have this electric crane that came in the room, and then they hook the crane up, and then they winch me up like this. And at one point, I'm about 6 or 7 feet off the ground up here, and I'm swinging in this sling like this, and I'm thinking, shit, get me out of this, get me down. And I said, guys, none of them knew there were 12 people in my room, all trying to do this, because they had never done it before either. And they're all looking and thinking, how can they get me down and get me into the wheelchair without missing the wheelchair? So I looked down and I said, guys, get me out of here. Who's in the room but Dr. Mohammed? And he looked up at me and said, you're okay, Mr. Trevor, nothing's going to happen to you. Dr. Mohammed's here. Wonderful, you know. And ever after that, that guy walked around with his head up, and he cleaned the rooms, and he walked around the corridors like he was somebody. And I felt really proud of that little thing, you know. He was in all the photographs that they took of me. Every time there was a photograph, Dr. Mohammed was in the picture, you know, with everybody else. And it was really nice. It was just a nice little thing.
I think we should all give him a clap.
The other thing is that, of course, nothing works below the waist, okay? I mean everything, nothing works. But one morning, I was probably about 2 to 3 months into my thing. Suddenly, I woke up and I thought, something's stirring. Like, something's stirring down there, you know, and I said, wow, this is great. So luckily, my wife was in the room, and I said, Agnes, come over here. She said, what? I said, put your hands under the cover. What's that? Oh, big smile, you know, oh, great. I mean, within 24 hours, everybody in the world knew that I had an erection. Facebook, you name it, the world. So now, guys, we've got to put the clock on mine. We want to know. It's important. It's important. Anyway, I was about here in Al Noor about 3 months. And then I moved, anybody got a drink round here? Can you pass me my beer? Yeah, make it 2, yeah. They moved me, thanks. Just take it off me a second. Yeah. You know, I went up to a place called the Rochester Wellness Centre, which was a rehabilitation unit, because it was the only place that I could be an inpatient. Now, the most important thing, Mike, is going to have to know that when you seriously get into rehabilitation, the most important person in your life is your nurse, your caregiver. Now, this has to be a guy. It can't be a girl. It can't be a beautiful. You can't wait till the most pretty girl comes along and think, I want that one. As they say, man who wants prettiness, first has to be patient. Doesn't happen. For people who are, quadriplegic, biplegic, whatever, you have to have a strong guy. So I go to this place and they give me a nurse. It was great, this guy called Greggy. But he was one of the supervisors, and they actually wanted him back. They wanted him to be kind of helping run the clinic. And so they kept trying to give me all these different nurses and fight me off with these people. And there were a whole bunch of people that either I didn't like, either they were too big, they were too small, they were too rough, they were too whatever, too gay. You get everything. And so I was really desperate, because of course you got to remember that the nurse is the guy that takes you into the shower. He's the one that washes your balls and wipes your arse. So the nurse is very important. You have to have the right one, the one you like. You don't want him to enjoy giving you a bed bath more than you enjoy it. So eventually, one morning I'm laid in bed, and Greggy's there, and they've been trying to get me to take a new nurse, and I'm laid in bed and I'm facing one way. And then all of a sudden I sense that there's somebody on the other side of me. So I remember I'm down here, and I roll over to the other side and look at him. Who's that? And first thing to note in this is after my operation, so I'm on a lot of drugs. Which is the same state that Mike's in right now. You get morphine, you get all these things. And so you're a bit kind of, So I roll over, and there's this really tall guy standing there. And I said, what the fuck is Dr. Spock doing in my room? And seriously, he was a Filipino, but he was 6'3" tall. Filipinos aren't 6'3", they're all 5'6". And he was 6'3" tall, and he looked just like Dr. Spock in the Starship movies, in the Enterprise. And of course, he didn't know anything about Dr. Spock because he was only 20. He'd never even seen the movies. So I all day I was on at him. I said, "Hey, you're just like Dr. Spock." And I said, "Yeah, your mother must have been abducted by aliens and taken up to the planet Vulcan, and you're 50% Vulcan, 50% Filipino." And he was going, "What? Who's this guy, crazy guy?" And I was telling him all about the Starship and this, that, and the other. And he obviously kind of thinks, "No, I'm off my head." Come 8 o'clock, suddenly he disappears. And then he comes into my room, and I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm leaving now." I said, "Oh, Dr. Spock." I said, "Why are you leaving?" He said, and just at that moment, it was perfect. He flicked open his phone, just like the Starship communicator. He said, "I have to go now." He said, "I'm going to be beamed up by the Starship Dubai Metro." That's my nurse. I had him for 2 years. He was brilliant. That's how you pick your nurse. Anyway. Physiotherapy. Mike's going to go through a lot of physiotherapy. You're there to build up all your muscles, and you do this and do that. And one day I was in the gym, and I'm in this clinic, and there's about 20 other patients in this clinic, and one of them was called Hamid. He was an Arabic kid with some genetic problems. He couldn't walk, he was in a wheelchair, etc., etc. And he talked like this. And so everybody thought he was stupid. But he wasn't. He was really actually smart. But Mohammed was madly in love with a receptionist, a girl called Joyce, who sat there, and he was always sitting in his wheelchair watching Joyce. Okay, so one day we're in the gym, and I'm doing something with my physiotherapist, and he's on this table, this sort of bed thing, in front of me. And the physiotherapist is trying to get him to do this movement. Now, this movement requires you to be on all fours, right? And you're actually in the missionary position. So I think you'll all understand where I'm going with this. So he's got his arse in the air and his hands down on the table. And the physiotherapist is trying to get him to go like this, just like he was making love to someone. Of course, Muhammad's never made love to anyone. So I said, "Hamid," I said, "just pretend you're making love to Joyce." And he didn't want to do this thing because the physiotherapist was trying to get him to do it, and he wouldn't do it. I said, "Hamid, just pretend you're making love to Joyce." Straight away, wow. Starts going like, wow, wow,
Well, so he does the exercise, and I said, Howard, did you enjoy that? He said, "No." I said, are you on cloud 9 now? He said, no, cloud 10. Now this bit's going to make the men cringe. Nothing works in the bottom half, right? Okay. That includes going for a pee. So what the doctors do, again, they don't know how to fix this, so they decide they're going to stick tubes in you. So they stick catheters, which go the wrong way up your urethral tube, up your penis, and it hurts. And so what they do over a long period of time, because you can't control this function, they keep sticking some tubes in. They have tubes that are regular, they have tubes that go in every day, some they leave there. Some, I actually had one tube at one time that was stuck through my abdomen, just above my pubic bone. And you just stick the tube right through you like that. And then you have this wonderful thing, like this bag on your leg. And this is when you know your kids are good, because if you ask your kid to empty your urine bag and he does it without complaint, you know you've got a good kid. And I have a lot of that. And it takes an incredibly long time to get the functions back. Okay, so I have 4 boys grown up, 4 boys. I've got 4 boys, one all grown up now. And I was really proud that because I'd grown up in a Filipino community, lots of maids, lots of nannies, lots of cousins, lots of aunties, I'd never had to do diapers. Never did a single diaper for any of my children. And there I was, here's Dad, now Dad has to wear a diaper. Okay, so it's a bit ironic. So it took me a long time to get through that. Eventually, one doctor came along. I had 9 urologists over a period of 3 years. 9. Mike, you're going to have fun with this. 9 urologists. I've only got one penis, but I had 9 urologists. One of them was an Roman. She was off the wall. And I gave up with her. And so eventually, the last one came along and he said, we're going to take that tube out. I said, when? This was the tube that was stuck through my abdomen. He said, now. So he took it out. And that was like a year ago. So a year ago, they pulled the tube out and said, okay, it's up to you now. And so you go through this whole thing of trying to regain control. And it's very important. It doesn't sound much, but it's like teaching a baby. It doesn't sound very much, but I'm telling you guys, the physiotherapy, Mike, when you get to this point, all the physiotherapy, all what the doctors do, they all come together because one of the best things in the world is to walk into a toilet, stand over the bowl and go, ah. Really, really good. Now remember, I mentioned morphic resonance. Morphic resonance, I want everybody to think really, really positively. Positive for Mike, positive for his family, positive for everything that's going on for him, okay? Money will help. The collection we do here will help. I had a lot of support from twins, from the rugby community, all over the world, and I was stunned. I mean, just that feeling of that so many people cared enough to help me financially. I wouldn't have got through it. I wouldn't be doing what I can do now if I hadn't done that. But the most important thing is, all the doctors will tell you, they can fix this, they can fix that, but 60 or 70% of the recovery is in your head. You have to believe it. And I think we have a song here, there's a song done by Journey, Steve Perry originally, then by Glee, and then later by In Rock of Ages, and it's Don't Stop Believing. I want everybody to believe.